I translating again. Tibetan to Ladakhi. Everybody understand, no? No?
Yeah. And so our translator will be back at 2 o'clock. So Rinpoche will lead us some meditations.
Yeah. Now we just Father also doing meditation. Then going easy his sitting with his father, Richard. Okay. Yes? Everybody do his relax. Any don't thinking, don't touching. Okay. Sitting 15 minutes. Then it's coming to later. Okay. So, huh? Only there.
Not yet, almost.
Almost. Good sleep.
Good sleep?
Yeah. Okay, so I think I do like to go now. So, somewhere wrong. So the running again a lot of jobs to do that.
She's not here.
She should be here in just a minute or so. Yeah, she's coming. Anybody else want to try for a few minutes? Okay, no.
Huh? Is there a special permission? Yeah.
So a couple people joined, they weren't here this morning. Then Rinpoche is talking about the story of one of the great yogis in Milarepa. And in that story, he's giving the teaching. So Rinpoche is kind of continuing in that teaching as soon as our translator comes back. And
I am here.
excellent, welcome back.
I'm so sorry for being too late.
He's okay. Now you're here, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
hold on.
very good.
Yeah.
No problem.
Good to know.
No problem.
Okay.
So, 나가서 못 드시 되는다.
Pastor,
나가서 나다들라 나가서 최냐 나다 몸개는다 또 되어서 선들라. 좀 미교도 뭐 시행거에서 가르치는 연구에서 근데 얘네들 방법을 또 코라드는 dum마도 쓰듯 dum마도 떠하는 부위도 서로 상로도 인증 매치 이런 거 해서 왜 수다이나와 근데 코라가 dum마 가라서는 미드솔라네 즉 깨져 시에나 되게 말해 깨져 빼먹고 시에를 막 시에나 되게 말해 그 깨져 직 시에나 찍으려는 게 이라면 이래 깨져 시 말해 칼라사나 되게 말해 그 발랑도 그래 칼라마사나 되게 말해 그 추통 되게 말해 그래 그 코라랑 임범에서 말하다 코라 임범에서 내가 너도 뭐니 디레스는 요 말해라 내가 코라에 그 누구한테 하나 보면서 오데 코라 동무가 타도 버째고 상도 방법에 근데 내랑 지금 많이 배 선자 상마라 동무 뭐 말이래 상마 타고 상마 아니 장수 좀 사는데 예성 그냥 아들 말도 될까
so first of all, when we listen to the Dharma teachings or we explain the Dharma teachings, we must have a good motivation for that. So we need to be clear of why do I listen to these teachings. So first of all, one thought that definitely has to arise is that we have to be aware of the suffering in samsara. So we're here because there's suffering in samsara, and we do not want that suffering. So it's important to really have that awareness. And then, so how is it just suffering? No matter what we do, either way, whichever way we go, it's never okay. There's always some kind of trouble. So you're supposed to talk to others, but then you're not supposed to talk too much to others. So then, but you're also not supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to talk to others. But then, so you're supposed to eat food, but you shouldn't eat this or that, or not too much, and also not nothing at all. And the same with drinking and so on. So either way, it's never. It's never just fine. So finally you come to the point where you find that samsara has no essence. I don't need all of these troubles. I don't need all this suffering. So first we do need to have a wish to be free from all of this suffering, and then we need to have a wish to free all beings from suffering, and that wish is called bodhicitta. So.
몰라서 다 이마에 연지 살려위해서 당보 초고를 주고는 대박이면 못 사지. 다 당보 초고를 주되 다 주기 골라 주는데 안에서 대박이라면 그지 말해. 상마다 대박서는 걸어라 버려서는 수당이어서 대박서는 이제에 깨지지는 이제 제사에 나 저 멤버 지기로 가서 뭐를 나서 코멘트 되거라 아들 대박을 팽이 말해라 그래서 대박을 가서 콜에 이치 거래라 멤버 되게 면대 뭐해 되게 뭐서 팽이나면 다시 좋아나야 사다진도 상나 이치미나 내 용문 말해라 어디서 얘네 또 이치돼 제거래라. 이제 가를 제거해서나 아까 뭐 되나서 되나다 추고 주봐. 정말 추고서도 취해서나 가려라 저거 알아서 쌤나 들어왔다 취해라. 내가마다 약 있게 나와나 ධර්마 서저와 안에데 별의 규론데 안에 야나 땜바 야나 쥐어봐. 지금 어디는 줄로 그래. 근데 내 줄로도 되나 되네. 담보 가라. 너도 버려서나 거기 땡겨 세게 버려 민게라. 와 땡겨서. 아디체도는 용문 라나마로 쳐봐는 근데 실하게 치가는 지켜면 된치나 땡겨도 이거보다 생기 로가네. 해서 다 되게 보는 거잖아. 근데 되게 식잖아요. 네. 아주 규정돼. 야나 땜바 야나 쥐어봐서 가를 주어서 나서 쌤나서 쥐게야지. 에라가 최선이다. 근데 슈블라 여봉마다 쓰레기 콜레지 주치네. 가딩에서 콜라 포이면다나 몰라마면다나 만에 상대는 이게 부모님 접어서도 최선이다. 포이인데 뭐에게 줄라 포이데 되게 못했잖아요. 최선이자가 찾았어. 최선이게. 어디는 최선이나 그러고 그래서는 아서 쌤나 교조단지 가래 교육을 해서는 가서 쌈나 가려야 돼. 그래서 쌈나 넣어야 돼. 또 쌈나 시다야 돼. 대문가. 근데 다 넣어야 돼. 가려 교육을 해서는 술집나 교육을 해. 애라 팀 소야 되라. 다들 간데서는 빨리 나와서 대 아리로 루바처럼 대봐 있나? 또 빨리 넘나 챘다는데 흉기 잘마장 로게리 넘마장 한번 지지 마장한테는 저기 그걸 먹고 당대에 세대나 아주 더 빠치서도 애가서 침당 가로 갔다. 좀 위험하다 봐라. 근데 침당 가서는 끼운 가르나 다른 것들에 대해 좋아 몰라. 나 대미 좋아 차를 당마들 가서는 공부하는 대미 좋아 차로. 오전에 가서 들라. 배나서 더 차도 수준을 교라. 그 마교네 끼운 가르나 동바 사면 나서 나유담이를 깨트기 말하라. 거기는 내 처음 말하라 되나. 내 고향은 야외에도 등록을 더 하는 것이다. 거기에 사기 대 비자 미라. 봐라. 어떤 애네들아 취했으면 내가 더 샤도 들어가잖아. 술집만 들어. 생각. 아저 가만히 소해.
So first it says when you go into the mountains. So first, you must go with great faith. 줄 고를 드린 이게 내가 가발을 쳐서 그래서
맞아.
Oh yeah. Anyways, when you take them to the mountains, first you must practice. You must cultivate great faith. So when you first enter the Dharma, we need to enter with great faith. And faith essentially means to trust, to really believe. For example, when you're sick, a doctor gives you medicine, and you trust it, you believe in it. That's why you take it. Actually, the Tibetans say that if you take it without any belief, any trust, then it won't be effective at all. So actually, we say that whether it works or not also really depends on your trust, your belief. So the first thing is when we enter the Dharma, is to believe, to trust. And so then the word Dharma itself, so in Tibetan it is true, and in Sanskrit is Dharma. So that term in Tibetan, that true in Tibetan, that actually refers to, either means the teachings, or we say it is something that transforms, so literally that changes us, transforms us. And this term true, actually the way it's written, there's this kind of genders that we have in the Tibetan language. So it is the male or female or neutral, and so it was determined. Sorry,
Also.
this was Gamgung Natra is actually Pomo or my Gamgung Natra is sorry.
오늘만데
Yes.
이게 라라. 다들 베기 나한테 그래만 봐 그래만 보다 많이 이해서 참아주다. 어디인데 내데 된 죄스들네 자나 죄스인데 지금은 누나네 찬나를 죄세 이 규르샤고 내가 줄라 이게 돼
차 이게 말이
뭐 자나를 죄서 죄세인가 어디 이게 되게 말해라 내 찬나를 죄세 규르샤다 달마된 죄세는 규르샤
handed about China truth and not pull or whatever.
어디 되게 말해서
handed como mai ba
어디 전에 찬나를 죄세 줄라 규르샤다 이게 돼 죄세 근데 그 본다데 가서 접촉이 되지고 그거 해라 지금 본다대로
Yeah, so it's kind of a Tibetan grammar thing. So that the word "chu" in Tibetan, so it's spelled cha, anaro, cho, and then sa. So if it actually means to fix or to transform, you would have a prefix to that attached, which is an a. But then that would, in Tibetan, you have three genders: you have male, female, and neutral. And so if you attach that prefix to it, it would genderize it. So those who created this term Dharma didn't want any gender attached to it, so they made it without the prefix. So it says as a child in order to chud. So anyways, even though it's spelled differently just for the gender purpose, it still means, even without that prefix, it still means with the transforming or changing the mind. And so what do we need to change in our mind? So right now, what's in our mind? Right now, there are thoughts of hatred, of desire, of ignorance. And to transform those through the Dharma, we first need ethical discipline. We need discipline to tame the mind. So first, actually desire is tamed through discipline. So for example, if you come to America, there are a lot of very strict laws here. So there's many things you can't do. You can't do this, you can't do that, or you can't just walk into somebody's house or just break the rules, basically. Because if you break the rules, then you can't stay here, and you have to go somewhere else. So we need to have discipline of not breaking the rules. So that's very, very similar to that. We cannot just let our desire run free, but we need them disciplined. So just like you can't, if you have a lot of desire, you can't stay in the higher realms of the gods and the humans, but then you have to go to the lower realms. And so the same thing sort of happens if you don't follow the laws. So,
알아서 근데 제당대 잠발을 길고래 성가 제당에서 밀릉 타보나 제당 말거나 미성 걸기 말해라래 미성 양도 되게 말해라래 근데 가르쳐 왔는데 파 유라당 가서 제당도 매봐서 가서 잠볼 때 에 잠볼잖아 근데 서서 밤아 번개라 사마 보라게 내려는 거래 사래 어디서 내가 서 제당 매봐서 했어 제당대 잠발을 길로 사네 대문대 셔럽을 길로다래 무대 셔럽스나 가서 가마시나 전에 야라도나 남가 신이 말에 말아도나 그 말에 가라고 신 말에 전에 가래 뭔가 제가 근데 지금 로병 제거를 셔럽스나 서도 병야 신야가 어디에나 얘네서 등록되는 거서 예스 어디라 얘네 합바스나라 아주 뭐 무슨 되기와 합바스나 방법을 했으니까 어디 민들 취해라 예스
yeah, so desire attachment is transformed through discipline. And then secondly, hatred must be transformed with love or kindness. So if you're a very angry person, then people cannot stay close to you. There will be nobody around you. And so we need to change that, transform that. And the way to transform it is through kindness. If you are kind and not angry all the time, then people will come close to you, your parents and your families, members, your friends, everyone will come close to you. So hatred or anger must be destroyed with kindness. And then ignorance must be transformed with wisdom or changed through wisdom. So first if you don't know anything, we don't know, we go up and down the road, we don't know where to go, we don't know what to eat, you eat the wrong thing. So you need to know what to do and how to do things right. And for that you need to train and to learn. And through training and learning, you develop wisdom. And with wisdom, ignorance goes away. And so this is also what we refer to as the 3 higher trainings. The 3 higher trainings transform or destroy the 3 afflictive emotions.
올라서 다대인들은 주벌주벌은 다바기면 뭐 살체해서 때는 다 상계분이 주어분이 있는 문제 때는 스스로 아마 오더라 대바치고 얘랑 대바스나 이치 다 거기에 남가되는 송다나 다들어서 이체전을 도발하면 또 다들 거기에 아버지 라이나 메나스나 내가 러시아야만 어디서는 남 땡견들가 이 이체지고 내가 대바 다들 규람해 봐 다다바 규람해 봤을 때 거두이나 딱구나 아니 삼나 교도하면 뭐니 제가 삼나 이체지고이나 그래서 남가들이 하고 로스끼리 예수는 못 살치는 거예요. 예수.
So then, when we enter into the Dharma, so we must cultivate faith in the 3 jewels, and so it says the faith in the 3 jewels that is like incredible. And so, as we said, faith means to have trust and belief. So you have to also, as you enter the Dharma, you have to trust and believe that this is the path. Yeah, so you genuinely, with unchanging, unwavering mind, you trust that this is the path. And if you fully trust in it, then the path itself will also go well.
되네 다 어서도 주인 없는 집이 다 가르치고 있으나 다 리오 얘기라 빼롱나 욕을 매도 공부지는 상기인데 겨울에 기도 대배 제자 살아서 다 담보 가려 가서는 어서 상계고나 알아래 알아서 뭐 상계고나 내가 상계 연대 계고나 알았습니다 상계 연대 계고나 알았습니다 상계 연대 계고나 다 가려 버려서는 기본적으로 국가적으로 딱 제도 빠지면 배 우주 병은 제거를 딱 기본이나 다 참다도 취해지더라. 다 취해지게 되라. 맞제만 말이야. 치유받자 치료서 남겨받자 나도 상여받자 인수서서도 어디라니 치유받자에 가르잖아. 그래서 믿어서기 다지 가져지라 너차 생기리 돼서 어제 병도 아니 치료나지 자야 통야 뭐 저캔도 네 지금 부잡지겐 대파 뭐 빠지겐 대 빼면 못 해본 거래. 어디서는 치유받지는 거야. 되네 같이 받자 미기 다마다 카당 다마다 채들자 네 나게 받자에 가라잖아. 네 나게 생기는 거야. 네 즉 semnamdo dhamma kina o tanga di chene dik samare di jono yong samare sa dhamma da samokam dhula dhudya ane samay parche de khara jana ta samay parche de tene pe kala hago ta ko samay parche sikende ta ko pe chotse judu che ta doba sanja pangna ta yo ochi de kana ane mi de sigi ta chi pe sha kya lo sa ya kya lo thun ya kya lo ane de la samlo ta o ta di thola ta de me ta de de la chik chae to o de jana de me de nge che wo sana ane tuzo ma o thola ta ne 거기 gom de che ma che ne pa ja ta na o de ne mun chi ki wa le o de samay par che ne ya ga ja chi ba ra ya che ya o che ko de na ya mi de sa ke 다 용타시 카다 다 마다시네 야 sem나마 강아체네 야 거기 취해데 매봐서 다시만 한겨로 어디서 상을 버티야 어딘데 어디기 용을 까불이나 도보 중는 좀 기보 중 생각 따라서 저야 중에 대강이요 배샤대강이요 다비 또 바테게 뭐고나 기보에 말 도보 중나 미기 카다 사야메 통야메 나 사중 하도서 나가래 가나다 오늘은 시를 써서 내야 되나 시를 하잖아요 말이야 그나데 거 봐줘라 그래서 이게 두셔 삼바지 거 삼대 이만 제가 품는 땅 앞에 나이도 집어가 된 거래게 나는 대거든요 땅 처나 신의 개발도 삼켜 대샤나 강제 말에 대셔서 근데 대모도 교면은 도래 근데 그거다 그 대샤도 그 친바디 장용네 도도 그래서 샤스는 이모 부자치 두개는 근데 아주 심만 셔서 근데 그 도다치라 차를 간제 말 교대도 대셔 그러라 도나 해는 문에 내봐서 그런 생각 근데 주라고 도다치나 그 도도를 가서 가서 나서 좀 뱉잖아요 그 당다시 그러 어디는 와네 나서 공격되는 어딘데 같이 또 보이더니 내라 어디서 뭐 택트가 버렸어. 땅속에 오 땅아 강변사 말에서는 내트 버시. 아니 내트 버이나 내가 가서 쉬어도 남들고 애라. 근데 간이라고 지고 하나? 나도 엄마한테 빼는 리라고 지. 리라롱 보여나요. 차라경나가 가재요나 그 고기 말에 그 대샤가 어디라고 하시냐면 고교모요 내트 버시고 예서 방금 주시 믿으라.
Recording in progress.
나.
Dice la zampa della carreccia su.
자선 이마 들어지는 나서 배워서 다 빼고 셔서 그래서 짜요 말. 근데 누기 뭔가 다나 시험에 무슨 뭐 강의라.
So when we practice the Dharma, we want to attain enlightenment or we want to attain the qualities of a Buddha. So to attain these qualities, what do we need to do? What we need is we need to first of all develop an evenness. So it says here, taking the mountains as an example, meditate free from movement. So whether good things or bad things happen, especially when it gets very difficult, especially in difficult times, you must persist with remaining unmoving. And so when we practice the Dharma, sometimes obstacles arise. There's all kinds of obstacles. There's outer obstacles, inner obstacles, secret obstacles, and so on. For example, outer obstacles are the things that happen to us on the outer level. We run into like people who blame us, or somebody insults you or speaks bad about you and puts you down, or you find no food and no drink, and so on. These are all outer hindrances. Just things just don't work out on the outer level. And then the inner obstacles are all the various thoughts arising in the mind that keep us from doing things. So we feel like maybe I shouldn't do this, but I should do that. I shouldn't do this, and I should do something else, and so on. So your mind is disturbed by that. That's the inner obstacle. And then the secret obstacles, they are quite tricky to deal with, because you may be someone who has already given up all desires of wealth and so on, all attachments, but then you often, it happens that you're wasting all your time about worrying about maybe some small things, like tending after small things, when you could be practicing or meditating. So maybe you're spending your time in things that you feel like you want to make it all, even though there's no attachment, you want to make it right or not right, and so on. You think this is how it should be or not. So that kind of basically keeps you secretly from your meditation. So sometimes you want to practice, you're practicing the Dharma well, and then other people come and then they bring up all kinds of problems to you, and they tell you this and that, those kind of problems. So basically it keeps you from practicing. It prevents you from practicing. So it's more an indirect kind of obstacle. It doesn't come really from you, but it's something that just keeps you from practicing. So whatever it is, so on the outer level, that happens for the most part. So whether it is, things going well. So when things go well, you have everything you need. You have your friends, you have wealth, and people praise you. You feel very happy. But then also negative things happen. Sometimes you don't find any food or drink, and people insult you and blame you for things, or you get very sick. All of these are various obstacles that can arise. And so, for example, in our retreat, there was someone who became very sick, and he actually thought that he's going to die, because we thought that he was really in very bad shape. And so one time he asked me, so should I go or should I stay? And I said that, well, if you're surely going to die, then there's nothing that can be done anyway, so you can stay. But if there's something you can do about it, then you go. And so he decided to stay because he was sure he's going to die. And he just stayed for a week or so. And even though he looked like basically dead already, he looked so awful, he just kept practicing for that week. And all of a sudden he was healed, and he's still here now. He was totally fine. And so he succeeded in this way because he persevered in the practice too. So what we need to be like a mountain when we practice. So a mountain always stays unmoving, even if a windstorm blows or heavy snow falls down, the mountain doesn't move, it stays steady. And so in the same way, the mind has to stay steady in the practice. So.
올라서 다들 등이들 다서 취해지게 개 최초 어디 보이는데 또 공기 대박 규매 시간대다 어디게 쌤 기도 좀 택도 받는 어디 대박 규매 다들 라마디 가래 라바데 년 더베나 내가 그 발자들 온 거 말해라 근데 년 맞나 라마들 이체 그 대박되면은 딱 공연이 말아 다들 이 말에 나시도 살잖아 때문에 시도해라 아마 저 배우는 자와지 공개해서 저와 그들 이 공개도 근데 맥장에 동화차래 맥장하네 강화장에 전에 라마를 주거든 나 빠지는 것이라 슈가래 슈드 다그 시대 누구 말이 지가 태만하다 can't change my essence. The chicken down, I think, Tom. I don't know much on some of the cousin. I told him so. Mother, was a wonderful there. They could chill at her son. She'll have me long. Let me try it. She did now that they shut up. We know him after simple travel. Who are not so the Tibar, but you want down with all the answer to the Lama, the Ichi, the body, Eba the Yuna, what the hero, Teba the Mason, the Teba the Ichi Mason, Ichi Mason. Come along the young mother, Chilla, on the long road, all the way. They are chick and kid have holding in it. Yuna, and so that's it. You are some gay. Get them, get a yamara, I told the Mason, and then such a son gave me to make it sent it to Mora. I thought they give the cow. Then I mother each me or the china.
It Gabani or
Really? Don't make me shalom, me shalom, me Oh, she did a mic is some good in a dash, I don't make long on a chair. After she can't go to she did chill out 10 on the person and then make Gina Shabby herself. Oh, then was a budget.
So most importantly for a practitioner, we need to have an unwavering faith, that is a trust. So a mind that can stay steady through good and bad. So when hardship come, no matter what happens, one must have a steady mind. And it is said that if you have this unwavering trust and a steady mind, then no obstacle can harm you. But if not, then for example, if you're very sick, and if you don't really trust in the Lama, for example, telling you either to stay or to go, for example, and you think I'm going to die, you just believe that, then you might die actually. But so it is about trusting. And for example, in Drikung, we also had a story about there were two monks who were meditating also in retreat, and so they both actually turned blind, and they became they couldn't walk. And so what happened to them is that there was Paking Rinpoche there, and they asked him, so what should we do? Leave or go? And so he advised them to stay or go, and he advised them to stay. And so one of them went, and one of them didn't. And then the one who left, he actually encountered an obstacle. He didn't stay because he didn't really believe what the Lama was telling him, and he truly became blind and couldn't see anything at all anymore. And the other one who believed the Lama, he stayed, and because he believed, he actually was healed and no longer blind. So that's really the most important thing. All of these are obstacles, outer obstacles. And so to avoid that, the mind has to be steady and must fully believe with a one-pointed determination. And if you do that, then there's no question, no doubt that you can attain enlightenment even in this lifetime. So in fact, the actual reason why we are not enlightened is because we don't really believe. We don't really believe in our Lama. So.
So that's your Magila Pelon and Gijamel I give them other Jula Krebasena, other Jula Sozogi. Toilama de that's Sangia Mui, some fanatic to go to the chance and also the something in it. Mobile Guba, Mobile Guba. And that day, Lama de Sangia Chuki Mosumi, some and also the son of Chuki. Lama de Longoin, some Longo is not the Lama de Tuba Kudire, some Tuba de Lama Bakio, Tamal Pajere, Sana, and Chilaka, Guma, somebody. Other than that, Lama de la Tanaso Mushi, Mugasechi was not. 가도이나 긴 책임해 봐. 다 간데다 지레스나 거기 빼송가 빼나 추 마이게라 빼놓가 괜찮아요 거기. 추이나 가도이나 긴 책임도 다 나는 자면서 라마드가 지나가 모구들 규마 잡아지. 라마드가 지나 규마 잡아지 뭐래라. 라마드 지나 규마 잡아 간데지고 그러잖아. 하나 너지 생기 근데 들어봐라 딱 공기 두개 또 같은 거야 보여봐라 근데 보는데 딱 들어봐게 공로 쭉 숨다 마이지 서서는 그저지가 네 너제 장자 근데 너제 장자네 공기 또 배한다 이제 보는데 공라 딱 뭐셔다 저다 쉬어다 삼아 도바를 차서는 거미 생각나 직직 담아서 시험도 다디 미래 미래는도 다디 제기 심선이 살아 다디 직 담아서 시험도 세나 빼기가 되는 근데 그 죄거든 근데 죄서는 가 산다 나른다 쇼스네 야신이 땅아 대신에 다스변도 돈다는 상관없이 근데 아보고 깨제대 교라마 수레세 얘라마 탐제 캠프에서 상계를 했으나라 다디 민형바 차서 딱고 되게 진상선 이상만 독자들이 공부해서는 줄래요 나렌다도 되면 근데 누구 자라 자라파 라마파 칼라상스 근데 공부시 라마 시대네 근데 공부 로중이 가와체도 수제네 근데 지나 누가 더버선데 남로 불성을 빼는 것은 근데 지네 다 공라마 기는 근데 미상 이체치도 얘라 오 되게 근데 나라 미라면 냐라면 통제기 나라 미라면 불르자라 와봐 까마서 뭐다 미라면 인송 되게 다 결합해 무슨 차가 되게 근데 또백이 지납대 근데 델로파기 나로파라 오샤가 데 나로페 고라 신기게서 나로파 테메나 게서나 근데 야 tenda서 근데 델로파는 지금 차상돼요 내 차송전에 여러분 특집 마찬가지 나라고 특집 돈지 먹어 뭐 도바든 나를 나에서 도바든 나에서 보라 위해서 데네시는 되게 빼샤게 지납지라 어디 단다고도 다서 예 가기들 요래서 어디들이 내 규배기 라마라 규바 마셔봐 내가 추어나 아니 로마라 무브 마셔봐 추어나 지금 예스 어디에나 એને 나서 연는데 다 약속이 있습니다.
So then, now, and next, so what's most, so then it continues in the text, so the song then says, taking the river flowing down as an example, meditate without breaking the flow. And to receive the blessings of the Guru, you must have continuous respect and devotion. So after having cultivated this faith, belief, then secondly, we must also see that Guru, the root Guru, as the actual Buddha. When we see the Guru as the Dharmakaya, like Vajradhara, you have this devotion and respect, we seeing the root Guru as Vajradhara, Dharmakaya, then you receive the blessings of the Dharmakaya. And if you see the Guru as the Sambhogakaya, then you receive the blessings of the Sambhogakaya. If you see the Guru as the Nirmanakaya, you receive the Nirmanakaya blessings. If you see the Guru as an ordinary person, then you receive no blessings at all. So we have to see the Guru as the actual Buddha to receive the Buddha's blessings. To receive the blessings of the Guru, you must have continuous respect and devotion. So continuous. So how should our devotion be? It should be continuous. It never stops. So the water in a river never stops. And so in the same way, and just like the Guru's blessings never stop, the disciples' devotion must also never stop. So also our lineage has never stopped. It is unceasing. For example, first it came from Vajradhara to Tilopa. Vajradhara transmitted the realization of his enlightened mind to Tilopa. And so then, was it Tilopa Naropa? Mare Tilopara? In a cool Nalanda, la Pepsong Tilopa?
Tilopara, Colo, Tuki, Topa, Sunday, and the Topa, the Paloma, Posha, Ella, oh, the Topa, Machapa, Rama, Chilap, give up Machapa, Chilap, the other thing, the Shigas and
And so Natilopa, he actually when he was 13, he was at Charnel Ground, and Vajradhara actually appeared to him directly. That's when the realization of Vajradhara was transferred to him, directly to his mind. And then later, when people asked him, who is your Lama, who is your Guru? He said, my Guru is the Buddha. So he's supposed to rely on a human being, and he didn't say that. And so because of that, because he said he doesn't have a human teacher, they thought that he's crazy. They thought he's crazy. And then he eventually had to escape, and he left for Nalanda, where he then actually did perform the display of relying on 4 teachers. So he relied on Tarapa, Luipa, then Nagarjuna, Shivadeshwari. So another Sanskrit term for it, not but Kalasammo. So he had these four teachers, and so then he could respond that I have four human teachers, and then finally they would actually believe him, and then once he at that point he could display his full realization, like flying in the sky, and he could say with certainty, these 4 are my lamas. And so then people would also actually believe him, and that would also benefit them, so they can receive his blessings. And so then all of his blessings, his enlightened mind was then transmitted to his disciple Naropa. And the way he transmitted it to Naropa was by striking him on the head with his sandal. And when he struck him, first Naropa fell unconscious, and when he awoke, his mind was completely clear. And Tilopa didn't say a single word, but in that moment, all of Tilopa's realization just dawned in Naropa's mind in that moment. And so then Tilopa said, so it is not by my words that I show you the truth, but it is by looking at your own mind. And so this is the lineage that Vishen has been passed down in an unbroken stream through the various lineage masters. So the lineage must be unbroken, and from the disciples' side, the devotion, the trust must be unbroken, must be unceasing. And if these together exist, then the practice will go well. So.
올라서 나 긴장을 검지도 사다들라는 상 아들아 나문에 검기하더니 나다라게 줘라 라마군에도 자 아니 남가들라 빼롱나 더위메 빼 검지 너 또나 따와 탑단시라 물주사라 어서 따라서 공원에 잡디 걸버서나 알아서게 샘기 나룩들라 따와 얘라래 샘기 나룩스나 샘제간데 간데 지어봐 어디라 나룩라래 샘들라 나룩당 나룩 생이야래 봐서 나룩스나 어쩌다는 다마다 삼아 통야당 서야당 제야당 도야당 무슨 나와 있는 샘기 나와라 다마다 적여 삼아 나룩스나 샘 코란데 가리라 어디다 따와서 따와서는 갈라버리잖아. 나도 지당 제가 다직 자기가 집에 따와서니다 또 집에 따와서니다 보다 이제 엄마에게 따와서 한다고 하는데 아버지 온다 따와서 한다 엄마랑 온다 전도서 가라고 하지 아버지가 내 선장기 따와서 내 상모 따와를 가로라고 해서 따와서 그래서 생기 알아서 생기는 용서지가 다 줘야 되라 따와라고 예 이게 생기는 용서도 드려서 다 해야 되라 다들아네 우메에 따와서 공부를 얘기하다 공기 생기는 용서를 드려서 다 줘야 되라 내가 때는 야 가자지 공부를 띵 공부를 띵 용서는 엄마랑 공부를 쓰자 안다고 생각하고 교성 대단하니 다지 딱 그런 것이는 독신스도 어디 다 온도 상분의 기변에 대 들리래 생각 다 주지고도 독신스라 나는 이제 너제 상태는 너는 기본 용교들은 자기가 전부기 나와서 제가 어디 가서 소속의 생명을 용서를 느껴도 탁절지는 미래 시야들 따와라 생각들와 어디 가르쳐 그런 생이 나누기 나와야 되는 거래. 애라 생이 나누. 나는 아니 나랑 저희나 개시조 가르쳐라나 저도 생이 나누데 가르도 어디로 따고 그래. 이상하도 가르쳐야 되나라. 다들 우메 따와래서 공부를 늘게 지저링에 팔아로 빠지 되게 공부를 줄라로 빠서 제거해야 말에 콜라 따제 제거 말에 콜라 시비 제거 말에 콜라 없잖아요. 코코랑 고톤 탑친 그냥 상견을 더 살겨래. 이는 거기다가 이메가서 무엇을 말해서 돈도 땅을 구야 말해 깨져 거야 말아 미치가 찌찌네 균을 거겨제라 공기를 해놨나 거겨제나도 오늘 가르고 하면서 따와서도 나랑 소리 쌤나나 가르고 어디라 내가 나네 공기 공부를 강라 뼈대다 구를 뭐지 강라 뼈대다 내 도저히 강라 뼈대다 나랑이 선대 튕기다면도 어디 빠제잖아요. 따라 받으나 그래 나루게 따와라 근데 수수 썸들아 이제 미지 따와를 못 하시나 미셔다 지레 되나 내가서 편도 봐야 말이야. 빼나 서로 미직 축복을 했습니다. 빼나 대나도 아직 때나 그런지 안반에 사는 거 이제를 사는 거 축복도 다 콜라 빼셨대요. 코드라 진짜 놀랐대. 콜라 살때 다 두기를 다 마음보다 시작해버려. 근데 콜라 라떼 연나요. 부모님 장내기 가서 여가 사만아서 하고나. 나도 뭐 팬도야만 되나. 그럼 때라 소소 깔아겨. 내가 지나. 다 놀라 겨치라나 데라 차 나요. 커피냐래. 갈아서요. 어디라고 말이야. 그나서 독생기 떠와서 자생이 떠와서 진짜 약벌에 독생인데 착생이 갑자기 곁도박이나 배도 잘 말인데 그걸 죽버려서 결어버려. 땅에서 내가 지금 빼셔가도 어디로 소속이 생들 가려도 어디 땅에 생나 가려도 노자 가려도 제당 가려도 대무 가려도 나기야 가려도 차도 가려도 어디서 유라 땅에서 땅 은혜 땅에 다 내려셔 마랑이 떠와서 내려셔 상해야 지금 유튜브에나 내가 서도 고무 기하라 켜다버려 고무 기하라 고빙해라 미치가 그 벨렌 야지야 나라지 요아르서 바이나 내가 서로 고비라 말해 콜라 벨렌 지야르스나 가서 고비테에서 테이마를 수야 되면데 내가 고무 기하서 고비테다를 그딱 돼야 돼 어디로 내가 나서 쌤들 따와서 내가 나서 쌤들 하수 집어를 해라 나루비 돈나 따와서 어디로 그래 뭔가 많이.
So now we come to the next part, which is the actual practice, not the actual meditation. So it says, taking the sky here as an example, meditate without center or edge, look at the reality of the true nature, do so with means and wisdom in you. So now when you look at the reality of the true nature, so and we meditate, that is where we view, we look at the natural state of the mind. And so when so when you see what the mind actually is, that's what you mean with the nature of the mind, when you understand what it is. So there's two different ways of viewing things. So there is the way things appear, and then the way things really are. So the way things appear refers to the various kinds of perceptions that we have of various things. And that's just how they appear to us. But then how it really is the true nature. So that's what we need to look at. Not the various outer perceptions, appearances, but the true nature of your mind. What is there really? And so that's what we refer to as the view. And some call it the view of Mahamudra, or the view of Dzogchen, or the view of the Madhyamaka, the middle way. And then even more, then they call it the view of the self-empty and the other empty, or the Chitta Matra, the mind-only view, and so on. And so essentially, the view means here an experience, an experiential view of the mind. So it's the mind's own experience that is decisive. So you have come to a conclusion. It is a decisive experience of something, and that is the view. And so it's not about how someone explained it and how we understand or interpret something. For example, Nagarjuna explained, this is how we explain the nature of the mind. So then people interpret that in different ways, and so that's why we have the self-empty and the other empty, different views. And so there's this so-called views that arise, or opinions that come from one's own interpretation. So the actual ultimate view has to be something that becomes your own personal experience. Or in the Nyingma Guru Rinpoche taught the Dzogchen view coming from Samantabhadra. Or in the Mahamudra tradition, we speak about the view of Mahamudra that came down from Vajradhara to Tilopa, Naropa, and so on. So it's the same thing. It's your own mind. That's what we talk about, the view, and it is something that you need to recognize for yourself. And then if once you have seen it for yourself and then share that with others, then what they get then is like the view, so to speak. We're speaking about the view. So that is not just an opinion, but it comes from somebody's personal experience. But it has to become your own experience. And so meaning that, say if someone tells you, well, Nagarjuna said this about the view, or this is the view of the Madhyamaka, the middle way that comes from Nagarjuna, and so you can speak about that, but that alone doesn't help anyone at all if it doesn't become your own view, your own experience. So it's not that. What we taught helped him. So he's already fully enlightened. But it doesn't, just that alone, just you knowing about that, it does not help you become like that. It doesn't become your own personal experience. And so when people speak about this is empty, you speak about emptiness without really understanding it themselves, there's no benefit in that. If it's just basically hearsay. They heard somebody say it and then they say that, but that without much trust or personal experience, it's of no benefit. So you have to find it within your own mind. And so you take the teachings of Guru Rinpoche or Nagarjuna, and then you apply it to your own mind, and you see, does that really actually agree with my own mind? Does that make sense in my own mind? And when it does, then that's the actual view. And so there is these three ways of the Madhyamaka, Dzogchen, and middle way, and so on, that we call a view. But just others speaking about it and telling you the view is of no benefit. So, for example, a person, let's say a very rich person, a person has a factory, has a company, and has a lot of money, has $1 million. And so I can tell you, explain you everything in much detail about that person. He has all that money, he has his factories, all these things, and so you know about that. Now you know. Now you know this person is extremely rich and has this factory. But that doesn't really help you at all. It doesn't even give you a single dollar. Even though the person has $1 million, you're not getting a single dollar of that person's $1 million. And just because you know he has, that doesn't mean you have any of it yourself. So if you just have $1, then you can actually go and buy a coffee. But if you just know somebody else has all this money, you won't be able to even buy a cup of coffee with that. So it's just like that with Dzogchen and Mahamudra. If someone else has the realization, that's all good. And if you just know about that and you don't do it yourself, it doesn't really help you at all. So you need to make your own money, your own practice. You need to look at your own mind. Like, what about my desire, my anger, my ignorance, my pride, my jealousy? So that's what you need to look at. And then that will change your mind. And then you actually have developed a view, a direct experience. And that's like, for example, receiving $100. With that, you can go and buy a coffee. If another person has $1 million and you know all about it, and you go to the coffee shop and say, I know about this person who has $1 million, so please give me some coffee, you don't get any coffee. Nobody will give you coffee unless you pay for it. So if you bring the money, somebody will give you coffee. So unless you have it yourself, the fact others have it does not help you. You have to develop it in yourself.
올라서 나 너는 타당처럼 보면서 아우들아 가르쳐 버리잖아. 아들 나는 그 돈에 따와야 돼. 하고 맞으면 통 맞으나. 나도 통해 담시 가르쳐가 타당 시람이 눈을 주고 그래. 해서 말해. 타당 시람이. 타당 시람은 누구잖아. 민재당 동이 장염도 거래. 그럼 나를 좀 아니 동이당 민재 장염도 거래. 성공세. 아들아를 이제 얘기하면은 답 아서디 동이 따와도 깨마나. 근데 서서라. 아니 교파저라고 해나 침바당 근데 주 빠져라고 메나 되네제 아리다 신나 선대와나 메도라고 다 신동라고 다 신도라고 하나 어디서나 빠마에다 판도서나 슈퍼 크샤이 나라 차요 말에 삼거래 근데 추라도나 저다 증라 인지마도 달라마에다 판도서나 추 내가 슈퍼 크인다 아이다 부터 하면서나 내가 저들 짐바세 내가 저거래 그래 다 유나 마부바체 잔다되게 인생아 내가서 주마셔라 소소로랑 고고방 그래 대체도 주마셔나 여와장 더야 지유기 마셔 어디서도 애네들 짐바스 애네 이바데 가서 첨송과 술좀다 잔다 야첨모 매나 가서 다 로진나라 유매 차직상기 돈벌어 슈트웨이나 때려도 술좀 남을 봐봐 시차고 아니 되나 술좀 나가 가라고 또 되면서 파마되나 야고 제야돼 다 술좀 사 나는 방쇼 야쇼에서도 파마 뭐 제야돼 나 다들 쇼는 말아 되는 야고야 말이야 근데 신은 나가 동료로 가지 바다마다 저저 버릴 때는 참바 잡아라 생송샤라 그래서 결혼이 좀 순경 없죠 송하다 에네서서 부족이 파마를 무자체셔 기본이 송샤래 그러잖아 콜라유다 뮬 덮기래서 어디서 송샤래 근데 내가 설라 기부 좀 그래 소상 좋아라 빼 펜보래 어디신데 내 이거 줄림 되는 생각이야 근데 소바스도 내가서 대도 다 믿어서라 할로 선아 할로 라야서 할로 선아 밀로가 되잖아 근데 소바 잡아라 그래서 소바스 곰 선아직 뭐 기존제 메이크업 아빠님이 보면 가요 말에 미치기 결혼 독자지라나 이제 다코 컨트롤한도 선배나 어디로 소바 샤를 받아보지만 지기라나 Pala Chigla, Yilam, Sumla Chana, and there's a Bashalamaya, Salad, the Kitum or Venechana, there's Zopa in Zopasana, and then Migi, your brother was shit. Nepal Yemigiata. Near the church of the Khaled of Chena, or that country, Mare, Sedatavana, and there was Zopala, all the Taki party in Salam. That's sometimes for me, some dead, and I get something all of that, Sharaki party, all the Gaduina, Sundu, Jetabaina. 내가서 쌤들 따와야 돼. 야, 보스 통은 그래, somebody. 어디 거기 답시야 된다.
And so, sorry. And then, we have to develop, it says here, you look at the reality of the true nature, and you do so with means and wisdom in union. And so, means and wisdom in union. So, when you unify wisdom and means, you see the nature of the mind. And so, in other words, skillful means and wisdom together are compassion and emptiness together. And so skillful means refers to the paramitas of skillful means. So it begins with the paramita of generosity. So if you have certain possessions, then you offer them, from food or drink and so on. If you can afford it, you will give it away to others. And if you don't, if you can't, you can. Then you think, I am offering in your mind. You make mental offerings. I'm offering flowers and fruit and trees and so on. If you don't have those, you can bring it to mind and offer it with that intention. And that's also generosity. And this is how we accumulate merit. Because on the other hand, if you actually have something about you don't want to give and you just want to mentally visualize it, then you're really just deceiving yourself. And so with that, you're not going to perfect the perfection of generosity. So then the second one is ethical discipline. And so generally that refers to keeping various vows, but even if you don't keep various vows, for example, if you take a Nyungne vow for 24 hours and you keep that discipline for that time, that is pure ethical conduct, ethical discipline. And actually, we say that what's most important, the most important form of ethical discipline is treating your parents well. And so maybe that's not a country where you can just say that freely without getting into trouble, but in truth, you have to respect your parents, and that's the best kind of discipline. And so, of course, a monk may have 250 different vows and so forth. There's all kinds of different vows and things that we can practice, but the best one of all of these is really to respect the parents. And so whether you're taking those 250 monk vows or respecting your parents, they're the same in result, because as a result of doing that, you attain birth in the higher realms as a god or a human. And so the benefit of ethical discipline, therefore, is that you accumulate great merit. And then the next one is patience, the paramita of patience. So just like saying hello to others, even when they're not, that's not patient. Or crossing your legs, closing your eyes, and sitting in a meditative gesture is not patience. What is patience is when someone insults you and really looks down on you, and you feel nothing but compassion for them and do not feel any anger toward them at all. So that is actually practicing patience. So not retaliating, but actually thinking of them in a gentle way, feeling compassion for them. That is actually patience. Or for example, when you encounter hardships in your Dharma practice, but you stay with it, that is also practicing patience, and that is how you, by staying steady, you're perfecting patience. And so together, these are the perfections of skillful means. And then wisdom is the perfection of wisdom, that is looking at the natural state of the mind and seeing it. That is the perfection of wisdom. And so those two need to be in union. And when they are unified, then you will see the nature of the mind. So unifying them is the method to see the nature of the mind.
Oh yeah, Sunday Gandhi, and I like it on the dog, 100 was not other bed, one of God in a bed. Long told me, yes, but Namkalina. Namke Tama Dilare is in a Yama, Adonamduna, Duldoshana, Kala Sona, Namkato Yamara, Napogi Tama Dina to do the Yama, Gil Dilare said Yama, what others and others Sengi, Raji, Nalugian, and the Tadan Wime Bas, Tadan Wime Bas, and Karabos and put down the wrong. Oh, don't the colors and also singing Nala, Zimbabwe, oh, Zimbabwe Chapman about 100 words, na? Ako sendira, Tadura, Tama Kadu. Ambo maso Karamor, Tata Umela Chadra, Ambo Sotogi, Tailamala, Tabaki. Then they should laugh, so Chede is saying Lamata, Tabaki. Then they you laugh, and then that's Sotogi, Mabe Chulugi Lamas, and then they you laugh, and then take Hindi down, issue down, Kaja down, Telama Sama. That's Sangi, Juba in there, oh, the Chile. And then they you laugh. And as a singing now, only true second never told. All the thousand then told me the bones and told me, Chicken, the Chapa Shimba Meva. Oh, you should have for a portrait to Jale, or Yella Mother Tashin or Konama the Tashin, or the less some of Meva Chiki, Bomchi, yes, and when I'm Catilena, the America Namgare, Nam Karesana, or Mabosabo, Mombo to Jinjabu, Chiang Yaman, Kadana, or the Nedichi Nam Kanalena, when a number donor told it as a Gina, number donor told him as a Yaman, but some much you got a or Gonas and Uncatchable, or number donor, Kare donor, call a good counting woman, or the other is the name of the same delay, or the son, never. Yes, that woman goes somewhere. I don't know how to say Somebody said, Kaleton was an old gate. And then, that's a true sing, the true sing. All the thoughts on the day as a similar around for it. All the day, Bumble, thought and the points, foundation, then the person, thought and the foundation, then sang a church and my yes, and the all the addition, the ditch, the members of the children. All the goes on that, and one at that look at the Katons, and I thought they killed Dumala, Foreign Dumala, my yes, and the old day. One money over the Gabriels on down, and it did not come in Sare, Ara Sojation in Sare. That's all.
Second. So now, once again. Yeah, so what kind of view do we need to cultivate? So here Milarepa gives this example. Taking the sky as an example, meditate without center or edge. And so when you think about sky, you cannot determine where is the center. Here's the center of the sky. For example, when you fly in an airplane and look outside, there's just endless space, endless sky. There's no end. You cannot say, so here, now we are at the center of sky. There's no such a place. There's no fixed place that is the center. So it's the same with the nature of the mind. The mind has no center or boundary. And to see that, the mind has to be free from grasping and attachment. And then without any grasping and attachment, you then look at the mind. And it becomes clear that there is no center or boundary. So actually, very first, you must have faith, trust in the root Lama. And then from that, then also actually that extends this respect or faith to the Lama. This extends to his entire Dharma circle, all of his surroundings. And then that extends even more to all traditions and all religions, like Christianity or Muslims or Hindus and so forth, and any religion with such a respect, you see them all as forms, emanations of Buddhas. And so then the religion itself, so when your mind becomes without center or boundary, then there's no fixation to a religion, for example. That becomes also without center or boundary, meaning that there is no bias, there is no fixing point where you stand, no side where you stand. When there is no more center or boundary, there's no sides to take, there's no attachment, no grasping, there's no thought of where you think that this is my Dharma, this is my religion, and my religion is right, but that religion, they're wrong. Or my Lama is good, but his Lama is not that good. So these thoughts disappear, they're absent when you see the mind is without center or boundary. For example, in space, we divide into different countries, but then you can't say, so this is the American space sky, and that is like the eastern sky, or some other sky. It's all the same space. It's not like my sky is red and yours is blue and so on, has different colors. It's all the same space. And an airplane, for example, can pass through any space. It's not like my space is unobstructed, but your space is obstructed. Every space is unobstructed. Every space is exactly the same. So that grasping is gone when you see that the mind has no center or boundary. Then there's no bias, no taking side. And so when the mind becomes, when you realize the nature of the mind is empty, then so the mind attains complete freedom. There is no grasping to any kind of religion or any kind of viewpoint. And Nagarjuna says that when the view that abandons all views, when all views are abandoned, that is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. And so what he meant is that he tried to refute this view where people take sides. This is this religion or that religion, this tradition or that tradition, and so on. And showing that it's all the same essence. And when you see that essence, the nature of the mind, then you are free from the suffering of samsara. And that's the real point, actually, of meditation, that we meditate to realize this directly. So now we will take a break.
15 minutes, okay? 动如三手连无邪，马耶马马耶有邪，耶马呀马耶马呀，嗡念嗡罗那瓦修。
Thank you, Rinpoche. So we'll come back about 3:30 then, about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Recording.
You want to do any questions now or at the end?
Okay,
Whatever you like. When you finish, huh? Lovely.
okay.
Lovely.
Second question.
He wants to finish up the bit part, and there'll be questions, so you call and we'll ask you. Oh, you got them ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They come together, so you'll have a chance.
Om Beda Goza Maya Magyo 미리서 세샤고 생각하는 거야. 나도 추는 처음에 시샤고 생각하는 거야. 어디서 와서 썸기 나를 공인 바래 못 하고 제가. 그래서 나 공격에 답변에 생각 나는 또 자시 차도 당하다 공격다 장용 거 상말에 육샤고 생각했는데 내 숨이 뭐다 되게 많이 봤다. 오늘 공격 거둔 거 되게. 어떻게 관계가 좋은 것은 빼셔요. 빼나 리저브는 추가받는 리저브는 추가받는 안에 깨서 깨신 거라. 오늘 다들 깨서 깎잖아. 주대 얘나잖아 로마다 그 리저브라. 거의 들 파조로 보던 시에 수조로 보던 시에 그 되네 깨게 깎잖아. 어디서 내가 저 넘보다 망보용 거래. 넘도 망보다 내가 까야 말라. 깎잖아. 그 발라도 술하기로 되는 게 발리기잖아. 오늘 가르쳐서 주도 마마 로지상 그랑 당가를 그러라. 얘네 거기에 중으로 그래. 어다는 전에 가서 또 그래요. 나들아 따라다이 로지상아. 이 뜻이긴 나더라. 뜻이선 어디 남도 그래요. 내가 마셔. 때네 가래 직계서나 선언은 한번 제가 맞자 통보서 밀게 시어도 왔다 축바지게 와서 상관 다들 야보중 상관도 왔다 가르주는 왔다가 샤샤잖아요. 그 털게 주대마 사나 말로 와 해먹는 거라. 어다는 전에 내가 뜻이긴 나더라. 아들 뜻이 지금 내가 봤다. 저랑 저 뭐스 정도가 대주라 내가 전부터 공개하던데 다 서바진 거 그래. 서바 생각에 가라와서는 내 깔라 다 빼ኝ 없다네. 땅살았네. 대산에 또 버티기 양성 있잖아요. 가져져라. 그는 미 제동 전도 선하는데 제동 한제동 좀 뭔가 통용네. 근데 배치자가 남자라네라. 어디가 아니라서 서바 검수 거래라. 근데 내가 때는 상당한 랑시자 샤도 상관없잖아요. 그래서 랑시자 책인데 뭐부터 거래. 가장 용바차간 그거를 상반에 그냥 열어도 어디 가서 소바 공부를 해라. 어디 가서 소바 공부를 해. 어디서 그런 소바 그런 민요를 되는 거뭐 들어봤어. 어디는 얘네들하고서 딱 상관없으나 저지게 나저로 라래 어디서나. 그래서 또 왜?
That's all? Yeah. So until this point, so you're talking about so how we meditate and how we look at the mind. And then now what comes next, the next verse is about how we actually sustain that. So once we know how to practice, how to look at the mind, then how do we sustain that? And so it says here, taking the sun and moon as an example, meditate without clarity, becoming obscured, and know the 6 types of beings as your parents. So now moving on to that. So for beginning practitioners, when they first meditate, we go through different stages. So according to the new tantric system, we speak about 4 yogas of Mahamudra. So we go through these 4 stages of single-pointedness, of freedom from elaboration, one taste, and non-meditation. And then according to the sutra path, we go through 5 paths. So the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of normal learning. So then each of these paths is also subdivided. Like the first path, in accumulation, we have the smaller, the middling, and the lesser, the supreme levels to that. And so, coming to the single pointedness, the first step of Mahamudra. So the first level we attain is attaining kind of hot warmth or heat. So here we first practice shamatha, and there's a warmth arises as a sign of practicing shamatha. So you're gaining some experience, or you're moving on to the path of preparation. But so now in the Mahamudra path, so warmth we can think of, for example, when you you light some wood on fire and then it burns. That's a kind of fire, but that's not the kind of warmth we are speaking about here when we are meditating. So there are many different kinds of warmth, but so here mainly it is a feeling of warmth that mainly arises below the navel, and that the warmth that arises below the navel is said to be a stable kind of warmth. If it arises in other body parts, like in the hands or the legs, the torso, upper, or the head, and so on, it is said that this kind of warmth is more unstable and more of like an unstable experience. But the more stable place is below the navel. And so that warmth is the first sign of shamatha arising. And so if it arises below the navel, so if it doesn't, if we focus on other parts, then it can cause all kinds of troubles later down the road. So we focus more on the navel. So that is a sign of shamatha. And then one sign of really accomplishing shamatha. So this is the first one is a sign of dawning shamatha, and then a real sign of accomplishing shamatha is when you no longer need to blink the eyes. So if you meditate, you may be able to stay without blinking for 5 minutes. Then you are in a state of shamatha for those 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or even an hour. Then that much shamatha is attained. But you completely attain shamatha when you have no more need to blink at all. Once Gampopa had this experience that he shared with Milarepa, and he said that he stayed without blinking for an entire 2 weeks. And Milarepa then responded that this is how we measure shamatha. This is a sign of shamatha, attaining shamatha. So it is when you're able to not blink at all with your eyes. So again, in the beginning first, a warmth arises in the body, and so single pointedness begins, and so then until that arises, the mind is more unruly. There's all kinds of thoughts that constantly arise in the mind, one thought after the other. And so until we attain a complete single pointedness, we have to train. We keep training the mind in single pointedness. And so then, so when you attain single pointedness, which is the first yoga, then you develop an ability to let go whatever arises, whatever thought arises, whatever emotion arises, no matter what it is. You're able to let it go, let it be, that the moment it comes. Even if you're in the middle of talking to someone or drinking tea with someone, or you have some thought of I'm going to fight with that person, or you're planning something in your mind, whatever arises, I'm going to kill that person. You have all these terrible thoughts that arise in your mind. So in the beginning, maybe you feel that I just can't meditate. I'm so bad. I'm having all these thoughts. But actually, having all these thoughts, you being aware of all these thoughts, is actually a sign that you're starting to meditate. It's actually a good thing. That's how it is in the beginning. You just have to persevere in that in the beginning. Even if you feel that I just can't meditate, I'm having all these terrible thoughts. So you continue to practice. In the beginning, it is the mind is like a waterfall crashing down a mountain. And at that time, while you're in the kind of free fall stage, it's very, very fierce. However, when it reaches the ground, the waterfall will reach the ground, then it will come down. It will come down at that point. So when it reaches the ground, you're attaining single pointedness. But you have to persevere in the practice. And for perseverance, this is also where patience comes in. Patiently persevering through your practice, continuing on despite no matter what happens. And so what happens during a meditation is that you may gain all kinds of experiences, meditative experiences. Speak about like bliss, clarity, non-thought, different meditative experiences, or even if you're a person that is very hot-tempered and maybe such an angry person may see all kinds of very terrifying things like demons and ghosts and really frightening visions. And then they are afraid and all kinds of emotions come up from that. And so at that time, that's when you need to practice patience. In those moments, this is when you need to practice patience. Without thinking that something has gone wrong, but you keep at it. Even if terrible thoughts arise, maybe sometimes when people actually use their mind and they think about committing suicide or they completely go crazy, that is actually a sign of that they were not able to practice patience in those critical moments. And so when we practice patience, so in the beginning the mind is like a waterfall, but you have to let it fall down as it goes down, because if you imagine you try to stop a waterfall, what would happen? It would be a huge explosion. You can't really stop it. It will find another way. The water is too violent. So if you try to stop and block these thoughts, you can't. It's like trying to block a waterfall. You can't block them. You just let them be. You just let them go. You just let the river go down, and once it's down, it will calm down on its own once it reaches the ground. So then through that, you develop a patience that perseveres through these difficulties. And if you then persevere through that and attain single-pointedness, so in the tantric tradition, this state is what we call the first yoga of Mahamudra, or single-pointedness. Sure.
올라서 다 어디래 지 보면 아니 다 참 서성고 선전 상계를 선전 사람들의 강의는 되는데 지금 네. 내가 참담 다 선전 상황 방어만 제가 지향을 삼아도 온 거래. 다 되지 않니? 된도 다 도디. 네, 두 파마를 셔봐라. 이제 공을 쳐봐. 사다를 주선. 그래서 서로 파마를 시험 그래서 내가라네. 선전 참 인제 공부가 지고래. 정말. 아니 인제도 공 맞으나. 이제 동바데 동경을 사서 아니 찾다라 홍도에서. 그래 다나서 이제 발진났는데 절바되는 나라네. 소세까지 주도기 나라네. 개배가라더네. 받은 사기업이 티칭 나라네. 까까지 막 개발하는데 이제 지금 거래. 되면은 얘도 고파하는 거래. 선생님이 어디 김진 가잖아. 어디네 고문데 얘는 이제대 아부 검토 거래. 엘라 다리도 하면서가 꿈은 이제 꿈은 캬바 살아 꿈은 캬프가 저거서 이제다. 그리고 생각하 마라 이제 오데게나 얘네 가서 봄데 아야 뭐 차온 거래라래. 아니 봄데 가서 돈다데 가르쳐 가서 봄데 그 빠기 거래라래. 그러나 아서 미치라라. 어디 아리도 진짜 찾는 미치가 아니 강바가 모다가 가데네 지기 자기 참아 정거나 로마고 지깔게 버려. 또 최종은 이슈. 근데 깔게는 것도 참아 좀 들어봐. 이내야 미치기라. 나는 참 아메리카게 롱바게 용서라. 아니 잠불는 게 자가 참마는 여러 지기래. 내가 담에 봐도 그래. 감에 봐도 그래. 살아봐이나. 근데 거기 아메리카게 공부샤나 콜라나 강바 모자 승적지게 참아 이마치라라래. 어디 가르나 거기 선거대 참마는 여러 과제 선거당하러 어디 그래. 왜냐면 미치기 나랑 나는 강바 모자지 참모 보들라네. 너 종이 휴가라게 버려. 오다는 전에 가서디 공개하다네. 누구 승자한테 인제고 나다 승자 참마 상계고도 저 선거당하네. 인제고 만에 아니 가서디 공개 통화중이 덴바스긴 또 떠는 거래. 선대 개강해야 돼. 이나 진짜 정말 상계 노일에 노일만 가서 선배잖아 처음에 미모가 선배들다 상마 상계를 해서는 그랬다는 노말에 그래서 노말잖아 왜냐 상계 시켜도 봐도 근데 공개들이 이제 공부를 해서 상마 뭘 그렇습니다 이제 공부 생각해서 상계에서 상계 나로 뭐도 살아 어떤 단어들을 대야 나 좋아해도 고나해도 이제 내가 죽이면도 네 법정들아 빠샤하면 되는 강아 태대로 그래서 상계야 말이야 또 어디로 이제 따라서 술랑 누가 보면 또 상마 상계 되네 또 보면데 내일 그랬습니다 참마 상계에 성나다면 이제 공부해나 때가서 개똥 신고해라 이제 꿈을 켜고 타고 통과 오야 다들 간절해지 고아르잖아 곰당 곰로데 간절해지 공부하잖아 미장이라 빼로마 설림을 보고 있어 성답에나 곰당 곰로 가르잖아 이마당 나와도 어떤 이마당 나와들라 나공차야 말이라 거기는 그 이마 짐박이 올라나 이마 위에 당벌에 그 짐박이 가서 집선을 마탕을 마시라 어서들라 천학군 천하양 바자다 콜레드 그런 거 당벌을 못 하고지라 이마라 천학군 차례 생이마나 보다야지 아니마 샤로 이마 사고 가고 당 줘야지 되네 야마래라 다는 자네 가서 거두이나 선들라 곰들라 네 야보다지만 두자가 매비가 살보던 리규매고 어느 선도 살싱이 당싱이 내가 지금 마용이 벌도 아니 곰 그래라 다들 곰에 쳐들어 내가 선데 거두이나라나 내가서 벗어라 내가 가르쳐서 이 거기대나 아니 선도 살팅이 돼야지 좀 그래 깨제 시에 되나 선도 살팅이 돼야지 그래 내가 서로 시한적으로 땅서 들어도 다 저는 보는 것에는 선도 당생이 돼야지 그래 내가 저야 지하면서 엠바치로 선 당생이 돼야지나 아니 뭐니 데 곰디 끼야 곰생이 봐 차가 내라래 내 때문에 와서 그때 게 겹삼에 지금에 잠팅이 되었는데 사팅이로 양 발전을 미 따라가나 양 죽로 양 대화지나 재밌게 해서 양 대라 죽로나 내데 곰데 신이 뭐 말해라 어디서 내가 살림에 곰 세대 딱하는 이마가 김발에 선나 나고 자유메케 내가 저들아 천하권치는 이마로 오바잔다잖아고 나고 자유메케 어디에 지게지 말에 내 살림에 곰세 김인데 내가 저 깨제 시안하는 곰들 칼라다나 곰을 이제면에 성당 그러니까 도진 곰들 차포라시 배정을 내가 야진 곰들 때문에 와서도 잘해다 마야서나 그러니까 맞은 곰들 맞다 저도 집에 다 마야서 다 공개 네 나라에 공내나 가와라서라
다마다와 디모 켈라 가르스도 말마
라
다마 흘러를 빠 가르스도
내가래 맞은 곰들 아까지 시계세 공교래서 맞다 저도 집에 다 마야서 다 대대체네 공개다 구르치도 어디로 맞춰을 보더니 가서 공부를 해라 다들 빼대거든 당연히 님만에서 나와라 빼잖아
So that's the single pointedness, and so then when then it says in the Repa song, know the 6 types of beings to have been your parents, have compassion that fully encompasses them all. So as you meditate like that, as you mentioned before, then sometimes develop this thought of all sentient beings. They have all been parents, and cultivate compassion for them. And that's important to always remind yourself of that, because if you don't, if you only just rest in emptiness without paying attention to compassion, then you can fall into a nihilistic view. And so it is said in the Paramita path that there are these 16 stages that they go through. And so the great Sakya had said that so when you reach the the eighth of those stages, and at this stage you have no compassion, then you will fall into a nihilistic view. So that's according to the path of the sutra systems. There's these 16 moments that they go through. And so now when you cultivate compassion for sentient beings, and that compassion includes all sentient beings, it encompasses them all, then actually it is said that realization will actually come very quickly from that as a result of that great compassion, because then your meditation will go well. So for example, you can think of it this way. So imagine, so you're a person who wants to have a house and a car. Yeah, you want a house and a car, you first have to work to make that kind of money. And it won't happen tomorrow, but you have to work for like 15 to 20 years at least before you can buy a house and a car. So it takes some time. You can get it, but it takes some time. And then another person says, like on a loudspeaker, I'm going to help all Americans, all countries. I will remove all the hardships and suffering. That person, they make him the president, and he has a house and a car in one day. So just like that, he doesn't have to work for 15 or 20 years. So it's a little bit similar in the Dharma. So if you're that person who wants to go to slowly, you can go there, but you have to struggle for 15 or 20 years. But if you're another person who thinks, I will free all sentient beings, I will bring them all to enlightenment, then from that it comes very quickly, and then the realization of emptiness, so it comes very quickly. So essentially, compassion makes the path quicker. And so now so since that is the intention of the Buddha, to bring all beings to enlightenment, then you may wonder then, but then there's still all these sentient beings. The Buddha is already enlightened, and we are still here. We're not enlightened. So what about the intention of bringing all beings to enlightenment? So of course, yes, the Buddha's compassion embraced all sentient beings of the 6 forms. Oh, so it says in the next line, know the 6 types of beings as your parents. So the 6 types of beings have to be embraced by your compassion. That was his intention, and he attained enlightenment a long time ago. And still we are here. It's been many years that the Buddha is enlightened, and we are still here. They're still not enlightened, and they still complain, a headache, and this hurts, and that hurts, and that doesn't work out, and can't find a job, all these problems, and so on. And so that's because he did all the work, and we did not. And so he has become enlightened, because we just think about, I have a headache, I have this, I have that. And the Buddha, on the other hand, he thought about all sentient beings, wants to bring them to enlightenment. So he's already enlightened. So it's just to show that when we have that intention, then enlightenment will come much quicker. So that's the benefit. So now, what do we need to do for that? So Milarepa says, take the sun and moon as an example. Meditate without clarity becoming obscured. So actually, the sun and the moon, they never go dark. It's just to our perception, they may go dark. Maybe some clouds cover them, and for us, they are dim, so we can't really see them. But somewhere else, where there is no clouds, other people will still see the light. So the sun and the moon don't really go dark. It's just that we don't see it in a certain moment. And so in the same way, the mind is actually always as it is clear. So this, until you have reached that point, until you have to meditate, until such a clarity is attained, that it never loses you lose your clarity again, no matter what happens. Whether meditation feels it's going well or not so well, good things or bad things happen, it all makes no difference. You never lose your clarity. And so until then, you have to train the mind. So no matter what happens, whether you are among many people and you hear much distraction, or you're alone, you're always clear in the mind. So until then, you have to train. And when the mind is really clear, and it always remains clear, then even when you sleep, the mind still stays clear. Or when you're talking to someone, the mind is still clear. And no matter what you do, whether you are sitting or walking around, or you're attacked or not, the clarity always remains. That never leaves you. And so sometimes also, people are fine when they're all by themselves and they're practicing, but if you put them in a crowd of people, they feel overwhelmed. So when your mind is really clear, it all makes no difference. Whether you are many or just sitting alone, you're always clear. And so this meditation is just this practice, the stage of the practice is just like the clouds do not obscure anymore. So there is no more like obscuration at all. So then, no matter what you do, whether you're eating or talking, you can always meditate. There's this other song by Milarepa where he said, when I'm walking around, walking becomes a circumambulation. That is the instruction of circumambulation. Even when I'm sleeping, I have the instruction on dispelling ignorance through the light of clear awareness. Or whether when I'm talking, then talking becomes the instruction of recitation. Whatever you do, it all becomes essentially Dharma practice. And until it becomes that, we have to train the mind. So.
Some question? Okay.
Herb has a question. Yeah, so we can do it. Yeah, maybe we can try that. Hello, hello. Loud enough? Yeah. Let's try.
Thank you so much for the teachings. It really, I can relate before lunch. So,
Okay. Can you hear okay, Ina, or no?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, Herb, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, when I'm trying to remember the words you used, clarity and emptiness. In a teaching I also heard recently on not being an emptiness zombie, because thinking the nature of emptiness being that, like you just stated, other living beings, we can become nihilistic if we think that our actions don't have consequences in delivering them from samsara. So, yeah, then you said this afternoon as well, the methods of for wisdom and compassion, and you use, for example, the sun and the moon. And when I was reading Lam Rim, and I don't remember if it was Nima or Gelu, but it mentioned the Haruka and the Kini concert, like the way to look at like method and compassion, like how they're facing inward and outward. Is that the same thing? Like you're using the analogy of the light of the moon and the sun, and like emptiness and clarity. Is that is it skillful to think of those things in the same way that you just referred to?
So you mean here the Haruka, so the Japan human consort, right?
Right, like it being aspects of our consciousness, like the primordial Sambhogakaya. If we don't have the full view of emptiness, we can hinder more than, because we don't have the method, just the knowledge, I think is what he said this morning. If you just have knowledge but you don't have the skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And what about the Haruka and the Dakini concert?
That then being the aspect of um,
Emptiness and
wisdom
clarity.
and yes, wisdom and meditation, or wisdom and
Uh-huh,
compassion.
uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Teni tering tiri kim haptang shara teni sarbatang tomba kola soyin pala. Teni nguma ko kashi shaba shi shunyo tinana tin dawo chi ponyo. Teni ta ninje mebe tomba ni teni cheda na la plong nyangka yore. Teni semchen shemba yang samgo yore. Teni chiri yang tering ni dawadang ni ma teni ninjelang sherap ora sungu chogo yore song teni ngoma kon lamrem ki action lamrem ki nige res chitong song tela heruka teni khandroma yom nyamdo yore di hap tang sherap tapshi song chog chungi yore teni song dos teni tana di tapshi song chog tang tirik sunya ki tapshi song chog di dawang ni ma di jibarbe
어그 직발이라 상마 직발이다 그런 개발이야 뭐랬어
Yes, that's exactly the same. That's all the same. There's no difference at all.
오케이
Okay, there's
Okay. Is the mic on?
You should be on.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, ever since I was 18 or so, about 1968, I wanted to learn Tumo and be able to meditate in the cold. And so during meditation, sometimes Zen center and so forth, I'd feel some warmth when meditating. But then one time I met His Holiness Chögyam Rinpoche, and he said, do short meditation sessions. And I think it's been beneficial because the long meditation, my mind just wanders forever. It's very hard to stay concentrated for an hour at a time. So my question is, to develop this, I haven't been able to, I've been very, very lazy all my life, and I've never gotten around to really moving into a cave. But I would really like to have my meditation more meaningful now. I'm wondering about the warmth. Should I try to meditate when it's cold? Should I keep the room colder? Would that help to develop meditation? How do I develop that? So I'm not going to learn Tumo very soon, I'm sure.
Tanako lo chemo chasong teni nguma lo chopke kapla be nguma lo chungde kapla lo chopke be kapla no mambo na teni de ne teni tapu tumo chik lo ko samsong nyame shego samsong teni eta khang na chakpa na teni kom kya go samsong teni pansana teni korang kom des kya teni te lepsong teni luring sang kom kya teni imachi la teni younger Rinpoche ngala song teni kyang tun tung tena yagare song teni ngala pe pen song tun tung den so kai sena samsam tun yu rinpo tena yang teni sem kasa kala rogo yore apa chechik de tugo yo mare teni tanda da mitse hanga kong samba nangshin nyamen che tu ma song teni ta samsam de lo chempo yore teni tumo kurang abang nangshin tambo samba nangshin le ma song teni tanda yina yang ko tanda kapla teni pache tumo sope mare yina yang ko tes tarang de nyamen shende yo teni tis dur bom ya teni ti dur bom kona ina dur ki kona ane to bom gori sa pena samsam la khamba tambo na la tena kira chawon na mena agare yana tena la pesa kanda ze bom gori tana kapla kombitse kana Kenzo?
야야 아데 지단게 dummo komyala ta so 밤에 가고 주고래 얘네들 거기 빠직 싸기 내가 울기 내가 내 주거에 내가 상마 laptop 가는 거는 다 사실 dummo 보면 저렇게 아마 깨봐이나 아니 없다면 무시하는데 짜증나게 그냥 다들한테 라마로 견뎌 보시나 네 지금지 강바 장모랑 되고 말에 이제 한번 중모랑 되고 말아. 그러지기 부모랑 게임 그래. 이렇게 애들 주먹이 그래도 깨서나 개주 걸어야 되나? 야가 섭과 체라 그냥 중모로 연기 담아요. 송. 미드 말빠기가 말빠라 참고 교보 차도 네. 가게하고 말 차와 친구가 그랬어. 네네. 그래서 ene kongi na kya sapa chingwa de ina jungwa ro nyame damwa ya res men sambo tu bi bodami se da sam men sambo tu tam dagi mare se de odi se bena tumu gom to bena sawa chapu na la de na sawa chigwa mare chama chapu na la na kyagwa mare o de tumu la bena garsen bo chena 사피 말레이시아로 와 네. 근데 대화한다고 처음 공부를 해도 아니 나나 저기 둘러 가려고 딱 보면서 보면은 깜발에 두고들 접고요. 어떤 이미 잡은 그 생각을 사는 거야. 아니 항상 참 내가 유럽도 왔다 아메리카도 군가들에서 나한테 장옥방 전에 들어와서 앞에 유샤로 오 데데 용도는 다 동무 생각돼 거라 누가 가라서 나라 내 사회용도 지금에서 정화용도 참여면서 데데 지금을 못 하거든요. 강바 정모칠 때는 뭐 저렇게 하지나 강바 정모칠 때는 재밌게 하던데 강야 말에 나서 네 라마데 갖고 싶고 그래서
So for the practice Tumo, the main thing that you need is a good lama, a qualified lama. Someone who can properly teach you the nature of the channels, of the winds, the different yogic exercises and so on. So you need those, the proper instruction from a lama who really understands it. If you try it on your own, you could still develop some heat, but that kind of heat can also bring a lot of trouble. So you need, first and foremost, a good lama. And it's not about what kind of temperature your room has at all. So you don't need to have a cooler room or a warmer room for anything. But the warmth arises more natural. So when Marba, the Rebbe's teacher, wanted to go to India, and people said that if you're already old, it's so extremely hot in India. But he said that there are the instructions on developing equal taste, and there is no heat that deters him. So the Tumu heat is not like that kind of heat that you encounter in India or so, but it just gets too hot. So if you accomplish Tumu, even if it's hot, you never actually feel too hot. It's more like regulating the temperature. So even if it's very hot, you don't really feel too hot. And if it's very cold, you don't really freeze. For example, Gacho Rinpoche, he's a good example of that. When he traveled, for example, to very hot countries like Malaysia, it was extremely hot, and he would sit there sometimes wrapping himself in like 2 layers of blankets, like really thick blankets, although it's already so hot. Or in Europe sometimes, when it's freezing cold and it was evening, sometimes he would just take off all of his clothes. And that's the power of the Tumu. You don't ever feel too hot, even when it's hot, and you don't freeze, even when it's very cold. So it's not about the temperature of your room. It's nothing about the temperature that helps you develop Tumu. The main thing really to develop Tumu is, first of all, to have a good lama.
I have a question in Zoom.
Okay.
So Zoom, there's a question. Rinpoche, when you talked about the red birds, about Kailash, the red birds in the sky, then they didn't quite understand. Can you clarify that again, please?
I think Dum actually so nga pachaya po.
그래.
Die Dum die Nummer he
Right
ruled.
now.
상계 시계 두 남나 분이 간데. 나중에 거다라고 진짜. 상계 시계도 뭐 강하는 거 저기도 라좀 뭐 막혀도 눈줄기 배발라. 남나 분이. 이게 뭐 나와서 뭐 괜찮아요. 거기 야 남나 다들 괜찮아. 짜 마스터가 망고지 가르쳐이나. 자네를 위로하지도 상나. 거기도 봐서 위로하고 이거는 남나 분들의 자들이라도 가르래. 저 자체 주고 해라고 하더라. 나서 된서라.
And in a day room, you mean the whole story, right? It's probably better because I probably didn't translate that.
내 가르래도 슬럼버도 딱 자지 거라. 그 다들 가르래도 세도 남나 부족해. 잘딱 미래도. 그 다자체 쇼라라. 내 넘버도 상에 다자체 온데 그네 상계 시켜 두바 다 가르를 배도 세주는 쓰다 다 시킨데 상계나 다 남나는 그걸로 그렇게 놀라라. 내 데데나 땅에 겨고 강벌 줄람 된대 주셔라 칼라 잘락 겨고라 겨보게. 근데 주도 되네 가성에 쉬우네. 근데 상계를 좀 해버려. 근데 줄람도 그 겨고 강벌 앞에 근데 그 깨져 지발 빠져 간대지는 남나 불벌 했어요. 그래서 그 남나 불에 중성라라. 근데 거기가 까지 땡이 자한다 빵 포로에 되게 등장 우네. 까와 로또 까와 제네. 근데 이제 공경네. 상계네. 내 남나 불에 중성세 봉 누기送말아. 네 성도 겨보다 성에 다 대형 방배 탈반에 나가면서 고다 맞나 대형 방배 다다되나 보이면서 되게 지 깔래야 다 되게 장성 알아보는 게 저거 자루 데서 정말 유능의 최저는 나타난 그게 메시도 에네 생각했는데 그 상황이 모두 공내에 그 도저히 보잖아요. 자들도 걸었으면 어디 전에 걸어 망공 공주 얘네 생이 자기가 지금 그런 거 써서 해라 그런 거. 좀 사서. 좀 하나 줬어. 자리가 좀 남았어. 그래서 괜찮아라.
That's so. That's so. And so now, the story was that the Buddha came to Mount Kailash, and so then the way he came to Mount Kailash was he flew there, and he flew there along with 500 arhats, and those red robes, and so then the king of that country saw them flying in the country, and so what he saw was what looked like people, but also like birds, because they were flying in the sky. And so he was wondering, what is this? And so then he heard that the Buddha, it was the Buddha, and so he wanted to know how he was able to do that. So he invited the Buddha to his palace, and then he asked the Buddha, so how could you do that? Or said, you fly, how could you fly? And the Buddha said, it's because I gave up all concern for samsaric life. I gave up the kingdom. I went through many hardships, like meditating for 6 years, and so on. And finally, I attained enlightenment, and now I can fly. And the king then thought that I want to become just like you, and I will also give up all attachments to wealth and food and drink and women and so on. So when he said that, then the Buddha saw that he is a proper vessel for the Vajrayana teachings.
In the meditation practice, when you spoke about the waterfall of thoughts and allowing that waterfall to go and drop and that it would calm, what comes up for me so often is busy thoughts and planning. And I realized through your teaching that this is sort of an undercover affliction, and I'm wondering if you can help me to understand it in like my relative life in the work world. I have like projects that I'm figuring out, and those sort of seep in when I'm just sitting, and I allow them, and then, but it's very active. Things come together, but it's like wrong place, wrong time. And then also after a meditation practice, if it has been a little more steady and I have energy, then I go into like busy working again. So I feel like I'm sort of in this cycle of busy.
Thì ta là cái cái là tham vô và số số xem thì đã chulo cái gì đấy bây xem cho con rồi rồi thì thì chút thì cả bây giờ mà đấy thì cái này mà sao nó thì có thằng nào đấy bây giờ thì cho nó trả bây giờ đấy thì ta morang thì là con gặp là thì số morang thì trả lại chuyện một thì ta bên muốn để cái mang bộ rồi sai làm chuyện thì ta chashi mang bộ số rồi cái lấy cái khai chuyện rồi chashi mang bộ số rồi thì thì anh chỉ đang phải chơi nhiều món bài số ba năm sinh thì ta bên ta là năm cái này muốn lấy cái mang bộ rồi lấy con này thì lấy cái tam mình muốn chashi số rồi thì làm chuyện thì xem là cái rồi thì phát sana thì ta nampak kan sejauhnya itu mana ada sama jadi dalam jore jadi muncul jore jadi di kan cukup dari mampu jore jadi samsam di pola sama kamu jore ini yang tiga apa yang di pola sama kamu mana yang ada ini yang lagi jore jadi kamu gap satu jadi jalan satu jadi tunsam di kapla jadi isi tham pasena jadi muncul 내가 진도를开始나 내가 망보여 내가 망보여래 근데 공장 때는 엄청 양 내가 너무 중도고요래 다또 어디나다 뭐 답변은 싶어도고요래 다배 내가 내가 망보 다 바꿔놓고요래 그때라 잘해고
올라서 다들 내가 망보여더라 내가 제가 그런 거를 선데 제지도 샤워라 어다른 겁니다 다 가르치기는那컴퓨터上下，哎呀，他看着送一来看，送一来个头了，没得给现在给这下可能头了，甚至出门去关家头呢，哎，可能公给多了，公这天的，那时候已经没去杀了的那去下下去嘛是吧？可能那自己甚至杀不下给这些嘛，咱那说的甚至长毛子行嘛是吧？那甚至长毛子那是长毛子那个，可能我们啊。这东西不要过去高松了嘞，刚才那么去拍把它加了是吧？就公布了。哎，刚才那么去加了是不是？那空气超过去了，超清楚。在弄啊，还看得光小声是吧？应该这么想，那这么想，咱光加弄没，那再来个毛回来吧。按照去习惯了，然后那个就我的是就上去个吧是吧？当时这种公布了，给人要么的，小朋友么的，一百公布的，八十公布的，这样子，他妈的到的，现在都是白忙不，这了嘛的，现在来个忙过的，大米了，早上就打过来，老早了打过来，这叫写过来，拉过来，现在就放到打过来，这其实，现在他讲么就金巴当月也什么，那金巴当月去。어디도 없었어. 나 나라에 말다. 집어도 없었어. 어디로 그래서 내가 공부했나 내가 가래는 어디는 썼는데 제일 야잖아. 되는 거야. 그러나 집어도 없었는데 깔래요 그거. 집어도 너는 집어도 치해도 들어와. 어디 용문도 그거 가도 들어와. 오늘 인사한테 정말로 하시네. 왜나 유공 그래서 나서 야치도 지가로 어디 갔더니 공부할 때 이나 갈이요래 이나 그래서 마대 칸에서 아예 알아서 그냥 사피 대라든 게 싸짜치나다 그절레미 오는 간다 같은 모터가 맞아요. 와텔라 모터야 제야 나다 모터가 심보도 샤 게임만 샤가 만나 빼라 부도 와래 때는데나 바람기 모터도 그래 따기 모터도 그래 때는 모터기 모터도 그래 미도 그래 빠네 상가지게 해라 깨지게 해라 되려도 근데 어디서나 뜻받이가 야랑 내내는 선바대 자셔도네 선바대 원래 전에네 곰데 예서 어디를 와서 내가 뜻지만 어디가 자셔는 무슨 데들이 왜 배가 빠르나 나는 영영 당하면 같이 되면서 어디서 장하래 이놈아이는 같이 하면서 공공을 하면서 이 로식 손에 그러게 아버지 이야기네 또 보고 좋은 때는 뭐야 깡을 따라가 교과에 대해서는 내가 뭐까지 겨뤄서도 그냥 뭐 이렇게 하면 되는 거야 이렇게 해도 되네 오 그런 공가 켜두세요 말 나라야 되는 공가 드세요 말세 비가 신동시도 어디 신동을 따라서 와야 되네 제 양신도도 하고 비가 또 신부 있어도 어디나 따 생중마지 와서 어디는 자꾸 로신이 우카라 아바기 공나버 레슨을 거치게 어디는 오시네 그래서 공가라 인지미지 유동제 댕가라데 매좀 뭐언자 동치동지 되고 나가리 이나 되고 어디는 레슨
So now, so we're busy. We have a lot to do, but it's also in those times where you do all these things that you can actually practice single-pointedness. So you can always be mindful. You can always practice single-pointedness. For example, when you're working on your computer and your mind stays on that one thing, focused, that's meditation, that's single-pointedness. Or when you are talking to people or you're doing your projects or you're doing some other kind of business, whatever you do, even if you're busy doing your job, if you focus on that one thing fully, single-pointedly, then that is actually meditation. So meditation doesn't mean that you need to always sit in this formal posture, that you always have your legs crossed and your eyes closed. The point of meditation is that the mind has to become clear, and so that is also what purifies the mind. That's what we need, a clear mind. There are many ways to get there. There are many ways to develop a clear mind. For example, a personal story about that. In 1993, Gautama Rinpoche came to India, to our monastery, and we had a conversation, and he asked me, so do you meditate? And I said, I wish, but I have no time. At that time, I was extremely busy because there were not a lot of people helping out at the monastery. So really, I was working from 4 a.m. to like 11 p.m. the whole day straight. There were not a lot of teachers there at the monastery, only very few. And I had to do everything. I had to look after the monks, and I had to teach the monks also, and I had to look after the office, the administrative part. I had to do really everything there. So there was just so much work and no time for meditation. So that's what I told Rinpoche in response to that. And then Rinpoche said, do you pee? And I said, well, yes, I pee. And then he said, well, then you can meditate when you pee. So then I didn't know what to say. Now I had no excuse. So of course I had to pee. And so, but then when I tried it out while actually peeing, actually it turns out it's not that easy too, because if you're trying to meditate when you're peeing, then actually the flow might also stop. And that is actually, that can be also very hard. So anyways, I'm not lying, this is really cool. And so during, but it really helped me to think about it in meditation in a different way, really. So during the day, from then on, I always tried to meditate. And of course it was difficult, I had so many things to do. But I remember what Rinpoche said, for example, when I was traveling at that time in Dehradun, in a car, on the road, and so it's so noisy, and there's so many cars, there's so much noise, there's so much going on, there's it's crowded with people, and there are cows in between, and there's honking. It's all this busyness, and it's completely wild to go through this noise. But then I realized that I can just let it be and just relax my mind. That itself is meditation, and not really get caught up in it. And so that was my experience that I have thanks to Rinpoche. And so then also Rinpoche told a story about his father who taught him to meditate when he was only 4 years old. And so he put him on a horseback, and because he was so little, he couldn't stay up there. He bound him up there. He tied him up there, and then he said that, so now look ahead. There's this rock over there. So until you get to that rock, don't lose your awareness of it. Just focus on that rock until you get there. And he kept doing that with each rock. And so in this way, he just kept meditating along the way. So meditation, really, it doesn't mean really that you have to sit in a cross-legged posture and close your eyes and so on, do certain things. It's really something you can do anywhere, at any time.
Tani had a question. We'll have time tomorrow also for questions. Tani?
Yeah. And gratitude is not finished. It's okay, no?
We have, okay, Dharanjit?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Tani.
Thank you so much for explaining about the waterfall and the meditation. It explained a lot for me. The concern or question I have is during meditation, like you said, sometimes I feel the heat in my hand and sometimes body in the head. And then sometimes with regular practice and deep meditation, even when I'm not practicing, I feel like a third eye, and I keep going, but then I get scared sometimes. It's when I start hearing, normally I don't hear noise, but then during really deep meditation or regular meditation, the house is completely quiet, and all of a sudden I hear boom, loud noises here and there. And during the day, there's nobody at home, I'm working, and I still hear voices. And that's when I get really concerned, like, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it right? And I would pause, right? And I notice, unless I meditate all the time and doing, really good flow, I don't really experience that, right? But the heat and other things, I experience it, and I'm not worried. So I can't tell if it's my mind playing trick on me, some other forces, or I'm just completely off, So if you could help with that.
ทีนี้ที่การช่วยที่ปั๊บช่วยกดที่ได้มันก็แพงส่งที่เจทีนี้น้ำก็จะไปกับเราที่เจอกี่ละทีนี้สังคมละที่สมบัติในเชิงเทปนั้นละมาเยี่ยมปะเชิงบาลาที่เจอกี่เป็นหลักการนะเราที่เจอกี่เลยที่ก็จะตั้งเชิงเจอกี่มันยังกินอย่างเชิงบัดที่ยังไม่ได้ทำทั้งความอยากทีนี้ที่ตามมันรักโควิดกี่ตามมันรักโควิดทีนี้เป็นคำบ้านอะไรเด็กคำบ้านอะไรนี่ที่จะมันรักคุณสิงห์บัวเลยทีนี้นี่จะเหม็นอะไรทีนี้ตามมันรักโควิดกี่ตามมันรักโควิดทีนี้ที่กับเราทีนี้ที่ที่นั่นที่เซ็นทรัลที่นั่นก็ตาที่นั่นที่นอร์ก็ยังนั่นที่ตั้งที่นอร์ก็นั่งที่นั่นที่เรายังไม่รอมาเลยนั่นสังกัดที่ก้องจับที่นั่นยังไม่รอเลย
Okay. Yeah. That is la la la. Kevona, Mongona, Yapur, Mare. This is down there. So, Gom de la Shimba, Sanyam, Dayam, Top and Yam, the Solid Yam, the candy. Solid Yam, and the was other old Mutu to the Necoman and take care down on the boy, zoom down on the palm. In Adela, now, the Sherash Jam. Oh, then. Dulce din nama komjen la, pi tumba chanda chine. Pene chana keja ducha la jilap kya na, ya am chalo boyong le. 데네데 상미데 또 오큐가라 깨지 데네데 라이 뭐 간절라이나 이제 항상 괜찮아. 그래서 호스라이나 호라데 랍사메 가이나 상관하고 빼면서 찍거나 뭐시에 찾아도 근데 뭐시에 많이 맞대는 상념사 상념 기간에 빈전에 가는 거 뱅가를 이어 야래가를 매바셔 딱볼 거야 말이야. 아니 다나지 아직 빼나 강바들하잖아. 강바 봐줘서나 체르스나 사사서 깨우고 어디서 남쪽으로 고용을 어디로 랩기를 됐어라 강남도 싫어하잖아요. 선바들 얼어 제자고 해는 그냥 약보 차고에 송다들 수상와서 상념도 때들이 빼먹는 거 때문에 담마다 다 그러지 왜 담마다 생각하는 뭐가 맞지 여거 생각이 되지만 내리 먹먹이게 되게 선다도 맞서도 쌓이기는 너무 양막기는 거네 되게 나와 창조하래 나도 서로 남도시다 제가 로로 제대로라 로로 제대로는 고향 양매와 차례 양 참는 때문에 사로 때문에 나는 생이 나오는 통해야 하고 다시 말해서 내가 또 제가 말해서
And so it happens on sometimes, and it's, of course you feel a little bit concerned about that, and then you hear different things. In our meditation, there are essentially 3 kinds of experience that we may have: bliss, clarity, and non-thought. And these are temporary experiences. And when you hear or see all sorts of things, that belongs to a clarity experience. But even if that happens, it's best to not even think about it. So sometimes somebody may have a vision of being really far away from someone, but hearing them speak. And for example, that person may speak very badly about you in that other place, but you hear it because your mind is so clear. And then maybe later you mention it to them, like what you said there the other day, did you really mean that? And so maybe then they will be shocked. How did you know? Are you clairvoyant? They think you're clairvoyant, but that's not actually clairvoyance. This is only an experience of clarity, not clairvoyance. And so an experience of clarity is not reliable. So sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't come. So sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not true. So it's not anything that we can trust in and rely in. And then another kind of clarity experience would be similar to the one you had. So you're sitting in a quiet house and then we hear all sorts of sounds or noises. So when that happens, don't think about it. Just relax the mind and let it be. And these clarity experiences can manifest in many different ways. So some people, they see something, maybe they see lights, or they see like a rainbow at the door, or they see something, they hear something. And all of these perceptions are essentially nothing else but the wind movements inside the channels. And so don't try not to think about them or analyze them, and just relax the mind, and it will just disappear on its own. And then what remains is a clear mind. So the mind will then just eventually become clearer and clearer. So it's kind of this clarity experience, and then persevering is a method for developing a clear mind. But so when that happens, it's important that you try not to think about it or kind of analyze it. So.
어 나서 수보기 쌓이나 롱당 핑레 위에 어떤데 지나다 근데 상담 가서 가만 하다 왔다 두다마다 차다 도마바를 공개를 이나를 가라서 다시는 휴성에서 봐 생각해 버렸어요. 내가 서봐도 바로를 지내버려라. 지금 이제 在家在鸟啥的有的呢，对了，那乐趣的了给起来。哎呀。
The one time in Gampopa, he also had an experience, and so he had this experience of a vision of seeing the 1,000 Buddhas. He was very excited about it, so he went to Milarepa and he wanted to tell him about it. So he came to see Milarepa and he said, I have to tell you something. And Milarepa said, what are you doing? You're supposed to meditate. And Gampopa said, but it's very special. I saw something, and Milarepa said, what did you see? He said, I saw 1,000 Buddhas. And Milarepa was not impressed. He said that's nothing, just go back meditating. And so Gampopa was a little bit disappointed because he felt that the Lama just acts like it's nothing, but it really made me feel, gave me a very special feeling. But anyways, Milarepa just sent him back to meditation. He didn't want him to think about it. So there's all kinds of things that we may experience or see in our practice. And essentially they're all just movements of the winds and also the drops in our channels. And as a result of these different movements, we see different colors and different forms. And it's at those times that you need to practice patience, as you mentioned before. That's when you practice patience and you just relax and you just stay with the practice. So if you keep analyzing it and try to figure it out and thinking it's this or what is this, then it just leads to trouble. So just relax and let it settle by itself.
我那时候那反正就是在转一下的，对对，那个的，就在这是好的，到底弄什么学校呢？家乡是吧？到底这些个都是些什么的？就是一张些是吧？就是搞嘛，这么多操作，那点那个的嘛就老小了，对自己没行动。
So now, so it's already a bit late, and even though there's a little bit of the text left, I will just give a long reading transmission of the rest. There's no time to go into more explanations now because we are already 20 minutes over time, past 3:30. So I will just give the long for the rest.
나랑 생각 좀 통화를 하면서 누워서 사실 내가 배우면 그러면 배 공지. 다만 너도 너 공지 때 봤다 벌써 라서 내가 초도나 당연히 배 공지도 나와 배쳐서 아무런 게 생각서 두다는 거 미자침에 가서도 저점제 배경을 저배양으로 둘라 균 두두 따라서 선대하고 도도 제가 너게 줘봐도 라메티나 맞으면 냠도 더 겨우기 던져라다 대체마 이제 손발 오야 다오데 손발에 사대제 손에 뭐 하고 때나 소단시 밖에 심바진 지도냐 예배 저거 보네 지금까지 세대 좋아서 당대냐나 마유기 리라 공도 송사 까디게 네디 두송 그냥 생각도 소소라나 네디 지켜져 하고 어디 시기에 두송 말하나 니게 말봉스 된 샤요 네 다 지금들이 지나 누구나 처음으로 주의하다 나라는 그 소놈 전부 가고 전부에 상비도다 제는 뭐 이제 세계가 근데 세계가 되라 때문에 나라가 때 계속만 오라고 그래서 사실 이거 뭐야 선하다 가게 아니 뭐 그래서 이렇게 사고 샤고 어딘데 지금이래 손ሻ래 걔는 나라 같이 난 걔라 같이 제세 나는 상마 같이 잼버래 그래서 나라 같이 나 걔랑 같이 잼버래 손이자 된다네 나가서 근데 마음 받아다 걔는 뭐 나는 밖에 받으면야다네 저와는 그런다네 다치 염내 다치네 남다 답에 가지고 계신 감소 예 김모는 벽이 아니 지나 상이 제우가 그래서 어떻게 내가 몸은 돼서 정말 진짜 여자들이 여러 몸에 뭐라
And so if we have more time tomorrow, then I would say just a few more words about this tomorrow. But I'm not sure if we have the time, so that's why I just finished with the reading transmission, so I at least have given you that. And so really feel that we have received Milare's blessings, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to speak to you, explain all of that to you today. And so actually explaining all of that to you, teaching also actually it helps me a lot. It really benefits me a lot, because when I explain it, first I reflect on how can I say it very clearly, what can I say to make it clear. And so it really helps me actually. So actually it maybe helped me more than it helped you. And so maybe you think that I'm so kind, but actually I think you're kind. You're actually kinder to me than I'm to you. It really helps me. It helped me a lot to do that. And so in the future, I pray that you're all free from any harm and obstacles, and that your Dharma practice will be brought to perfection, and that you're born in the Pure Lands. And anyways, I still see you tomorrow, and now let's dedicate the merit.
Complete dedication or short one? So 224 in volume 1. If you have volume 2, it'll be page 80, okay? So 224 in volume 1. And we'll just do it together, yeah? Then I have a couple announcements. Yeah.